No longer constrained by traditional partnerships, nations are re-evaluating their affiliations based on shifting economic interest, security concerns, and ideological affinity, among others. Once dominated by Western powers, the definition of influence and partnership and more so global diplomacy are expanding as we witness the rising of influence of nations, particularly in the global south and BRICS bloc, like China, India, Russia, and even a more robust African continent. The formation of new coalitions, including the expansion of BRICS, the alliance of Sahel states, among others, equally challenges the established Euro-Atlantic paradigm and reveals strengths of collaboration among countries that were once deemed rivals. This realignment of power not only creates fertile ground for opportunities, but also introduces potential for conflict as countries navigate through the complexities of diplomacy, security, trade, and a multipolar world. Also, the role of international organizations is increasingly scrutinized as nations look beyond traditional frameworks to adapt to the rapidly changing environment. How, therefore, those changing relationships, ideologies between countries affect global geopolitical setting and its implications on international peace and security, and also economic dynamics. The merging of the global south has opened a new geopolitical battle, therefore, and space for redefining concepts and philosophies. First, it is imperative to analyze the nitty-gritty of these new alliances and their potentials in affecting international relations, geopolitics, balance of power, foreign policy, public policy of nations, among other aspects. Since the global transformation is inevitable, and we are in the middle of the battle for the future, the core question is the agenda that is suggested for the future and the value set that underlies that agenda. Why should the collective West be defiant or resistant to the new developments or the emerging of other giants in the sphere of security, technology, trade, and other aspects that bring importance to globalization and international relations, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we are going to actually navigate or decode in the course of this discursive program, Global Insight, as we continue to bring a greater scope and horizon for better comprehension of the challenges or opportunities and also the practical changes happening in the world. Let me join you right after the jingle. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege, of course, to have you on this edition of the program. It is Global Insight, brought to you by Globus. We continue to analyze those aspects which are now unavoidable and which will maintain the dynamics of the new world order, shifting alliances, West resistor as new giants emerge. Are we talking about the rapprochement that has happened between African countries and the Russian Federation? Are we talking about the rapprochement between India and France, and of course the emerging and the expansion of the BRICS bloc, and also China that is gaining ground economically and otherwise? Now, these are some of the aspects of these shifting alliances that we continue to decode on this platform, a discursive platform that brings together a panel of experts to elucidate or decode on the nitty-gritty as underlined in the preamble of these shifting or new or realignment among international relations sphere. Without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure that we introduce a panel this day, taking us straight away to Scotland. We want to appreciate KONRAD, RਆਪਾS, who is a journalist and economist and also leader of the Polish Yes for Independent Scotland. It's a pleasure having you this day on Global Insight.
I'm honored to be with you here today and to have a conversation with such a noble guest about such important questions for the future of the world. Thank you very much.
Indeed, it's about the future of the world and how the new dynamics are affecting the global setting and collaboration. And to Serbia, Belgrade, to be precise, let's welcome DRAGANA TRIFKOVIĆ, Director General of the Center for Strategic Studies. It's a pleasure having you, DRAGANA, on Global Insight this day.
Thank you very much, dear Clarice. It's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me again.
And thank you so much for accepting and giving importance to this discussion that will actually create a greater horizon for the people of the world at large as we navigate the new dynamics of international relations. And to India, let's welcome RİSHABH, SETHI, international relations expert and also a civil diplomat. Hello, RİSHABH.
Yeah, hello, good evening, Miss Clarice, and namaste to all our people who are watching us online. First of all, I would like to thanks to you and to your whole team of Pan-African Media TV and Globus for once again inviting me to your platform. And I would be really happy to share my views on today's agenda. Thank you so much. Looking forward to participate in the discussion today.
It is very imperative, of course, to share not just opinions, but present factual ideas that will bring us to better understanding the narratives in the world. Now to the United Kingdom, we're being joined by MATEUSZ PISKORSKI, editor of Polish Thought Poland. Welcome to Global Insight this day.
Thank you very much for your invitation, and I'm really pleased and honored, as always, to participate in Global Insights. I think it's one of the most interesting initiatives in the web nowadays.
Indeed, it is of greater importance that we analyze this and to actually give us a perspective largely from the African side. We acknowledge the presence of PASEKA PHARUMELE, PhD, UNISA academic and CPP member. A pleasure having you this day as he joins us from South Africa.
Thank you, Clarice. I'm looking forward to having this discussion with my fellow informed panelists and seeing if we can learn more from each other and then we can teach others who are watching us from home. Thank you, Clarice.
Absolutely. It's about learning, relearning, unlearning for the better presentation of the world, ladies and gentlemen. We go straight away to the contextual analysis of our topic for today. We are looking at shifting alliances. It is imperative for us to understand what shifting alliances is all about and how it is affecting the emerging or world order of today. And we right off with you, MATEUSZ, from a political scientist. We want to have a holistic understanding of our topic today of shifting alliances and how it is affecting traditional global order to what we call today a new world order.
Thank you very much once more. Well, I would first discuss some terms, some basic terms, let's say, because I'm always wondering if the new world order will be based somehow on alliances. You know, how far will those alliances go? Perhaps we'll have quite a chaotic period before the multipolar world will take its shape, its final shape, yes. We'll have, let's say, short period or medium period of shifting and changing, not only shifting, but changing alliances, yes. I would say situative alliances, tactical alliances between different superpowers and between other countries as well. The fate of European Union now indicates that the time for long-term cooperation, long-term blocks might have passed already, yes. And I guess that at least as far as we'll have the politicians like of realists in the international relations, we will have something like chaotic bilateral network of different treaties and let's say temporary alliances or even sectoral alliances, I would say, yes. Mm-hmm. Because in the chaos of modern day world, we might tell that there will be some alliances or some forms of cooperation which were unknown before. Let's say, for instance, that in some issues, when it comes to some issues, the United States will cooperate with the Russian Federation. Mm-hmm. That's one of the examples. Probably, I mean, we are going to witness very important summit, and it will probably give us some answers to the questions of the future. Nevertheless, I guess that it will be not something long enduring and long standing. It will be rather quite chaotic, yes. So the world at this stage might be based on bilateral ties, bilateral agreements, temporary agreements, I suppose. Although, of course, any kinds of forecasts in these turbulent times are quite difficult to be done. And I have noticed that my colleagues, political scientists from most of the countries are trying to secure themselves, and they are, you know, giving some multi-scenario forecasts, not focusing on one possibility, but thinking about different alternatives and so on. So it's very hard to predict. Nevertheless, I can agree with the main hypothesis, with the main standpoint that the unipolar world is over. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with those who claim that we are closer to the bipolar world, as some of experts claim to say that we'll have a bipolarity like it was in the times of the Cold War, but this time the Cold War will be waged between the United States and China as two economic superpowers. Yeah. I rather think that we'll have a period of bilateral chaos, international chaos, and then, only then, after this period, we will have more or less balanced multipolar world.
And of course, looking at having a balanced multipolar world that will give again meaning to concept of globalization and international relations in the same perspective with you, Dragana, from the position of geostrategic analyst. We want to look at how these current times of shifting alliances or realignment between nations of the world is actually some of the trends in these geopolitical strategies, and which will look at how it maybe our focus should be on the complex interplay of power, particularly in Eastern Europe, given the present dynamics now.
Yes, first of all, I would like to agree with my colleague Mateusz that Now I think we are living in some period of vacuum. We don't live anymore in the unipolar world. It's clear, it's totally clear, and we can all agree about this. But we are not still in the multipolar world as well, and we are living in the one chaotic period, I will say, where, for example, the international law is not existing, unfortunately. And the problem, I think the biggest problem is that the Western countries are not able to accept that unipolar world is not existing anymore. They don't want to accept reality, that we are going to multipolar world. Yeah? We are not still in this multipolar world, but we are shifting there, and it's not possible to stop this process or to return in the past. And my opinion is that they are still hoping, and we can confirm this regarding this summit between Putin and Trump at Alaska, that Western countries and the collective West is still hoping that they can act like in the past. If we analyze what they are saying, we can agree that Western countries are still pushing these ideas that they can make some peace between Russia and Ukraine, but exactly they are not talking about peace, they are talking about ceasefire. And we have Russia, who is all the time saying that they want to resolve the root of this problem of war, but they cannot even speak with Western countries about this basic problem, because Western countries totally ignore this, and they are trying to push their own agenda, and they are hoping still that they can arrange everything and that everything can be like in past. But I think it's not possible. If we speak about the European Union, because here are my colleagues from Europe,
Yes.
European Union is a good example that the past coalitions are not working anymore. They are not functioning. Especially it's visible in the Brussels, in the EU, and we can see inside the European Union that wasn't the case before.
Yeah.
That they cannot agree on many things. Especially we can see that some of the South European countries, like Hungary and Slovakia and Serbia as well, no matter that Serbia is not in the European Union, but it's part of Europe. We cannot agree on too many things, and the main problem is that the Brussels is still very strong control by the Washington. The Europe don't have sovereignty. And recently they are losing their power as well. Political power, economical power, they are not so important anymore at the international level. We saw that they are not invited to this summit in Alaska, and they are very mad about this. And the problem is that they are acting like the children. They are acting like the childish way. And I think that we will need the time, and this process of multipolarization of world will continue, because, first of all, because we need the time to solve our political problem in some way that we will be able to speak at the international level. When I say when we will be able, I think the Europe and the European leaders, because we have very so-called leaders. We have very weak European leaders now. In the past there were good politicians, and now we have Macron and Merz, Baerbock, von der Leyen, who are not accepted even by the citizens of European countries. They don't have too much support. And I also think they are not able to solve any problems, and they are not able even to speak diplomatically with Russia, with anyone else. They are just demanding what they think they want, what they think they are able to do, but in the practice we can see that it's not possible even to talk with these leaders.
Which makes it more complicated, or brings us to that area of the problematic on how we can navigate these new times while reducing global, destruction of what we already have at this juncture. And having said that, we now get to understand Africa's position in line with these new alliances, or even shifting alliances or realignment with you, PASEKA PHARUMELE. We note that every nation of the world is actually an actor already in this new global dispensational dimension, and Africa is very pivotal at this moment. We can cite a whole lot of examples positioning Africa as a key factor in the new world of multipolarity. Now with you, PASEKA PHARUMELE, can you holistically give us, Africa's major role in this era of shifting alliances or landscape, and also maybe emphasize on the potential for new partnerships or relationships that will help propel Africa to the position where it actually has to be, in line with its Agenda 2063, among others.
Thank you, Clarice. I really appreciate what our sister DRAGANA just said, because that is something that is very key. We are dealing with a system that for a very long time has been in control of everything. The West for a very long time has controlled narratives the world over. The West has worked to make sure that what it says is what the rest of the world says. And now we are heading towards a multipolar world where you find different narratives that come from different people. We now find ourselves where we have information which the West would say is not important information. Their narratives are more important than anyone else's narrative. And the West doesn't like that. Specifically, we look at the case of the United States. Now that you have other powers who are coming into existence, specifically I use the case of China, I use the case of Russia, where now they are controlling their own narratives. They are able to say, but we will fight back if you push us into a corner. The West hates that. The United States has sustained that it is not comfortable with that. It does not necessarily have to be coming from the president, but those members of parliament who come out and they say, but this cannot be allowed to occur. The vice president of the United States admitted that the initial idea behind globalization was so that they could make sure that countries such as the United States, such as the United Kingdoms, and the rest, those countries, through globalization, they could improve themselves, while the rest of the world would be doing the work at the bottom, where you would be producing stuff, but not producing stuff to uplift yourself and improve your livelihood, improve the country's economy, but to just exist. But they would still be getting stronger and stronger. And now that has led us to a situation in which the United States has found itself in a political position, socio-political, economic position, where they have less power, they have less control of narratives, they have less willingness, participation from the rest of us, where you now start questioning them, specifically the United States, and some of the things that they do. I give a simple example using the case study of South Africa and the ICC or the ICJ, where we said what is happening currently in Palestine is a genocide, or is an activity that is leading to a genocide. And because of that, we've been harshly attacked, and we've been harshly targeted by the United States. And that on its own, it shows you that they do not believe that such a small country that has next to no power necessarily due to our socioeconomic position has any right to question the actions of what could be regarded as a superpower, in this specific case and point, Israel. So you see, it is this our relationship with the East, specifically China, India, Russia, through BRICS, that we are able to stand up and say, but this is very problematic. We are able to now call out things that are clearly very problematic, that something needs to be done, because throughout the years, countries that form NATO have made themselves powers that can control what is right and what is wrong, and everyone else had to agree with it. But now it is a different situation, where now we have friends that we can say, but this is wrong. And if you want to problematize the relationship that we have with you, we can just move our allegiance. Yes. And because South Africa has a very strategic geopolitical position in the continent of Africa, when we move our allegiances towards BRICS specifically, the United States knows that this is not going to be comfortable for them. But they couldn't have imagined this 50 years ago. So I do believe that we will find ourselves in an even more powerful position, but this will only be possible through us as a continent, through us as neighbors, making sure that we strengthen our allegiances with the rest of these countries that have been secluded, that have been problematized by countries that form NATO and etc., and those who form the rest of the West. So I do hope that I did speak to a point from an African point of view, but also from a global point of view for where Africa stands today, Clarice. Thank you.
Indeed, thinking globally and also adopting local solutions to the interconnected issues or problems affecting the world at large. In the same perspective, we are looking at how all these dynamics are actually putting the theories of international relations, also diplomacy, and how it has affected civil diplomacy and foreign policies of countries at large. And with you, Konrad, let's have a perspective how you think some of these emerging movements challenging traditional setting of the global world intersect with the the trends in today's society, particularly minded by the collective West in wanting to withstand Western, the fight against Western hegemony.
Yes, well, I would say that I believe that I could be the oldest here among the today's participants. So I really well remember the times when the collapse of the so-called Eastern Soviet bloc was absolutely unimaginable. No one could think of the world, which is organized in different way than a bipolar one. We could try to find if it's possible to be more stable, more safe, if we could find the ways how to we could coexist between the East and the West, how we of course appreciate the great component of the non-alignment part of the world, but still it believed that it resists for centuries, even or at least for decades. And then in just couple years everything has changed, and we wake up during the so-called end of history, which was just the of course cover name for American domination. But this was something more important even than the only one empire, one dominant country domination, because we have to think about three levels. We have to think what, of course, Dr. PHARUMELE mentioned. We have to think about cultural hegemony, so the hegemony over the discourse, the language we use discussing and seeing the things in the world. We have to think about, of course, financial economy dominance, and about military control. I think that the moment we meet is crucial in all of these three perspectives, because now we can see that this cultural hegemony Western cultural hegemony is crashing on our eyes. Yeah, one example, and a very, very important example, is the Palestinian case. That this language, this narrative, which is aimed to justify the Holocaust made by the Zionist occupiers in the Palestine, is no longer valid for the Western, also even for Western societies, not mention the rest of the world, who speak absolutely different in this case, and this direct is straight, that this is the genocide. It cannot be accepted in anyhow. Another thing is economy, and I would say that that is the point which I'm the less optimistic as for now, because when we observe American activity in different parts of the world, we have to understand that they don't want to surrender. They don't want to shift back very easily.
Absolutely.
You can see that in the first from, I believe, 12 or 13 years, where American direct investments in Africa are even bigger in the annual perspective than the Chinese ones. So that's the first moment they try to restore their position. Of course, maybe it's too late for them, and lucky for the others. Maybe it's not a moment they could do these steps to save the rest of the empire for longer, but still they try. The empire strikes back. That's the point. That's the moment we live. Of course, another element is, of course, military control. And I think that Ukrainian example is, in this point, the most important, the most significant, because we can observe that Russian Federation, which, let's say, it's not the strongest state in the world in case of economy, for example, not even when we consider population, but still, Russian army is absolutely effective fighting against the whole united and organized military power of the West. And that's true, and we can observe even now, even daily, seeing the progress of the Russian army in the Ukrainian battlefield with the whole West, not only the Ukrainian army, but the whole organized West. We can see that this military control is not anymore uncomparable to other efforts. So that's very important for us when we think, for example, for the change of the balance of power in the Asia region, especially in the near the Chinese borders, and of course it's crucially important when you think about liberating African countries and African continents from the rest of the Western dominance and the military control, not only American one, but of all post-colonial powers, France, United Kingdom, and so on. So we are observing that the system is crashing, but again, system is still trying to defend themselves, and we have to be aware of that. That it's not the moment they just say, okay, fine, you have won. Let's discuss the new rules. Let's find the ways how to organize the multipolar world, which benefits for us all. No, they will try to resist, and we have to be prepared for that.
In data, we have to be prepared for the resistance, and also to be conversant and aware that it's all about interest. And while navigating this complex and dynamics and new alignments of the global world order, it is imperative to identify national interest, sovereignty, and see how to navigate it among other nations, bringing us again now to having a perspective from India, knowing fully well the position of India in today's shifting alliances, and we also are aware of India's policy of non-alignment and how the country is apparently entrapped as India's alignment with the Russian Federation has actually put the country in a tight spot with the United States of America. Now with you, Richard SETHI, let's understand India's growing influence and also its position in this new dynamics of shifting alliances, and how the country can navigate among other countries as well the complexities of these new alliances or shifting alliances, while maintaining a better partnership with other countries for the betterment of the nation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clarice. First of all, I would like to stress upon, when you talk about this special relationship of India and Russia, the whole world knows that India and Russia are like one of the closest, true, timely tested friends, and already from last more than 25 years, the special friendship and relationship between our countries is called as a strategic partners, because if you see from the historical times, both the countries are standing for each other during the difficult period of time. And especially, I will go back a little bit into history, as everybody knows that as India had a very strong bad period of time under the colonization of the Britishers. And after that, in the year of 1947, when we got independence, and from that, the period of time, that time USSR, Soviet Union, was the first country to start the official relationship and the diplomatic relation between our countries also, and even opened the representative embassies in both the countries, vice versa. And during that time, if you see very actively, USSR was the country which helped India to develop their power plants, thermal power plants, nuclear power plants, even the engineering universities like that. So even after that, during the war of 1971, the India-Pakistan war, Soviet Union was only the one country which supported fully India as one of the very close friends. As we always say, Russia and India is like brother for each other. And on the other hand, the Pakistan was supported by the US. So this is there are so many other examples in the war of 1999, the great Kargil war also. So many situations happened when India was always blindly and openly supported by USSR and Russia. At the same time, we as an Indian citizens always believe in this thing, that you can never trust the countries from the West or the US, because these countries are only with you in your good times and only for their selfish interests. That's it. This is the main cause. If you can see from the last around more than 2 weeks, what Mr. President Donald Trump is playing the game of tariffs, and how he's trying to blackmail our country leaders and the citizen of our country, the businessmen, that if you don't stop to buy oil from Russia, we'll put tariffs on you. And already they have implemented tariffs already around 50%. But for what reason? If you see, it's just like a simple stupidity, because India is exporting the goods. And if you see, many countries in the world are importing a lot of pharmacies, medicines, technology, and so many things, because we need to understand clearly that all the countries, especially in the West or the US, they are presently dependent on all the developing countries, because these all countries in the especially in the West or maybe the US, they are fully developed country, but the situation is that they don't have such cheap labor, or they don't have such advanced technology to handle the labor in their own country to produce the goods, because the prices will be very much higher and expensive when we are talking about the labor prices. So they are somehow directly or indirectly are dependent on the Asian countries or maybe African countries to take all these stuff, and that is the reason that all these countries from last more than many years are manufacturing their goods in their respective countries. If you see, why China, why India, why Vietnam or other Asian many countries are dominating in terms of the industrial hub, I can say. So they need to understand that they are dependent and they are taking all these resources. All the billionaires, rich industrialists are investing money in China, in India, in other countries, and this is one reason. It is so stupid that they are importing these goods from India to US, so it will be expensive for their own citizen. So the expensiveness of the goods will be getting much more costlier day by day there. So the main point is that the only businessmen from India who are exporting goods to US, they will having some problem, but to India there will not be any problem, because as if you can see that India is now one of the highest growing economy already in the world. They are like in the top 3, top 4. And the future, as we have, our friend has already shared that we are already living in the multipolar world, because the golden era of the West or the golden era of the US is totally finished, over, and it is not possible for them to start these industries, their manufacturing hubs in their own country. If you see, India's technology is always popular. All these big companies, brands, if you can just name like Google, or maybe you can just say Microsoft, Pepsi, so many brands are there, which are being run by all the engineers, maximum who are working there, all are the Indian brains who are working there. So they should need to understand, if these engineers are getting high paid jobs there, getting a lot of dollars and working there, so maybe why not in the future, if our government should take a stand and implement some rule, these engineers should work inside, sitting in their own country, and develop such platform inside their own country also, like what Russia is already doing, what China is already doing. Like they have their WeChat, or maybe like new Max Messenger or Contact VK, like this platforms. So I want to say, like, we are already in multipolar world, because all these countries now, from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia or South Asia, already understand what the West is doing or what the US is doing, and that is the reason that all these countries are now standing together. And in this difficult period of geopolitical issues, especially the BRICS countries, you can see, are supporting each other, because everybody believes that we need to support and help each other. The mindset of all these countries is very different if you compare it from the West or the US, because if you see Asia, if you see Russia, if you see Africa or Latin America, we have our past. We have a very long, rich history. We have a strong culture. And this is a reason that we have a belief in mind that we don't believe, or we don't want to hold the strength on other country or other people. We believe to support each other and to grow together. And this is why, if you see that our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, already has said that we should support all these countries, because our friend from Africa, or maybe from Asian countries also, or Russia, they are all our strong partners. And not only partners, we are not only in their good times, we are always there in the bad time. So if something bad, we need to believe that when we are united together, we stand for each other, and we should focus more to develop more stronger multipolar world, because this is right now in the 21st century, it's a digital era. Absolutely. And no one country have a right to rule the world.
In data, it's about collaboration, and from the introductory analysis presented by the panel, we can already tell for sure that shifting alliances or new alliances, or probably engagement is not largely negative, as some opinions will put it, but actually it's a tool for better cementing international relations, cooperations in every dimension. We rely on each other for one or two things. We are coming back to Mateusz, and of course wanting to throw more light on what he highlighted while defining very pertinent or keywords pertaining international relations, shifting alliances, and how it is affecting the traditional setting with the 21st century setting that we have today. And we're going to take for sure, Mateusz, the impending meeting between President Putin and Donald Trump regarding the situation in Ukraine. We want to use this case study to better understand how imperative for international relations or shifting alliances is, as far as countries are concerned, in terms of solving situations to cement bilateral relations, and how this can be an example for other countries with the mindset or philosophy that aligning with country A automatically makes you an enemy of country B, and of course at the end you end up being trapped in the political or geopolitical game.
Well, I think that it's basically the reason. I mean, what's happening now and what we'll be witnessing when it comes to Russian-American relations is the reason of the decision made by India and China. I mean, there will be probably no meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and no such relations if China and India, as well as perhaps also Brazil and some other big oil and gas importers would agree and would, let's say, bow under the pressure of United States and resign or cancel all the contracts with the Russian Federation, yes? It would be, of course, detrimental for their economies, but there was a huge pressure, as you remember, of the neoconservatives, American US neoconservatives, with Lindsey Graham and other Republican, basically Republican senators in United States. There was a huge pressure from hawkish lobby in United States to, let's say, make India, China, and some other countries on their knees when it comes to oil and gas imports from Russia. After very, let's say, pragmatic decisions made by Beijing and New Delhi, we can say that the United States learned that they have no other choice as to start these bilateral negotiations. Yes? So it's a kind of paradox, because on the one hand, as we told, we have the world based on chaotic bilateral relations. On the other hand, some of the countries, some of the countries of the global south, let's say, or of the non-Western world, yes, decide to help each other, but not because of their particular love for their alliances, their allies from the non-Western world, but due to pragmatic reasons, yes. So due to pragmatic reasons, we had the decisions made by India and China. This is very important. And when it comes to main arrangements which could be made in the framework of bilateral decisions, well, I think that in the future we'll have new fields, new areas of international competition. And I basically think after my colleagues talked about that, I basically think that the relations between US and Russia will be kind of multi-level relations concerning different fields. Let's not focus on Ukraine. I think that the summit takes place in Alaska, very far from Europe, very far from Ukraine, because they want to discuss other matters as well.
Absolutely.
Basically, it's also symbolic that the summit as such takes place in Alaska, because it opens a new debate in bilateral American-Russian relations about the Arctic region. This might be the most important issue, by the way, in the coming future, yes? Along with issues like artificial intelligence and let's say, international regulations when it comes to artificial intelligence, and about the space, yes? Actually, the space and the regulation of the space is also a topic for discussion between US and Russia, as far as we know, and even of some kinds of cooperation, even now, between NASA and Roscosmos. So we have completely different fields to be regulated within this bilateral framework. But on the other hand, and this is the second chapter of the development of current international relations, I think that sooner or later, when it comes to some of those fields, of those new fields that should be regulated, we will have to come to a kind of multilateral, multipolar, big power, huge power orchestra, and to make some common arrangements, to include the arrangements which are now going to be made by Russia and US, some other major players like China, India, Brazil, South Africa, even more emerging powers in the contemporary multipolar world. Multipolar world is so interesting because it won't finish on 5 or 6 superpowers. I guess that the multipolar world is about perhaps dozens of regional powers shaping their neighborhoods. Yes, so this future world anyway will start to shape only after there are some bilateral big agreements like the one we expect from United States and Russia. Nevertheless, we cannot be sure what will happen. So let's wait those few hours or few days to learn what was the real result of this first summit between Moscow and Washington since many years. Yeah.
Of course, the world is watching with anticipation to see how these materials will actually shape the aspect, especially balance of power, which I would appreciate if you, Dragana, elaborates more on how all of these new dispensations along lines of international relations or alliances will shape the balance of power as the world anticipates to see the outcome of the meeting between Trump and Putin, slated for August 15, 2025.
Yes, I can totally agree again with Mateusz that in some way the United States were pushed to organize this summit with Russia, basically because China and India refused and they didn't want to agree with America to stop buying the Russian oil and gas and stop trading with Russia. So I think that this very firm commitment of BRICS countries to unity, it's the main problem for the Western countries, for the collective West. Basically, it's the main problem for United States because we already agreed that United States are commanders of the collective West. And no matter they're trying to represent that they don't have so much problem, that everything is good like before, we are aware of that basically this collective West, their power is based on propaganda. And this is the main power of collective West, propaganda. If we analyze the military power, we can analyze what is happening in the Ukrainian front. And basically, this is not the war between Ukraine and Russia. This is the war between collective West and Russia, because collective West is sending the arms, sending the military support, logistics support. They are sending all necessary information to Ukraine, also satellite information. They are also sending the fighters there. So this is the war between collective West and Russia in the territory of Ukraine. And if we analyze now the situation, it's obvious that Russia have a strategic power there, and they cannot, the whole West cannot compare to Russian military power. Also, we can analyze the economic aspect, and the RİSHABH, the colleague from India, already mentioned that Africa has a lot of gas, and also the India and the other countries, China as well. They have technological power, they have a strong industry. The main problem for United States was that they decided to replace the industry to East, to Asia, because they wanted to earn more money, and they were finding opportunity to get more money for the producing, using the power of people in the Asia. So The problem we have now is that collective West they are refusing to understand the reality. They are acting like they are still the biggest power in the world and they can do everything what they want. But as I said, this unity of BRICS country, it's the main alternative for our future, and this is very important. Unfortunately, we don't speak in Europe too much about the BRICS idea, about the future of multipolarity, because it's forbidden. We are under totally censorship, and I think this is the biggest problem for Europe, because the Europe can be the last in this multipolar world and with the worst position. So in regarding that, Africa is in a better position. Now we know this colonial past and how the European country especially used Africa, and now Africa has the opportunity to change, really change the things. But if I can comment also this summit between Putin and Trump, I'm not too much optimistic. Why? Because we are discussing the reality, the real facts, but the United States and Europe whole they are refusing to see the reality. So the American foreign policy is still based on this Wolfowitz doctrine, which means that they need to destroy all rivals. They don't want to accept any other power to become the powers as they are, and they are still dedicated to that, to just expand their power everywhere, and their influence through using the power. That is the main problem, and that is why we have conflicts in the Middle East as well, in the Palestine, in Iran, in the Syria, Iraq, in too many countries. And why I'm not so much optimistic? Well, the main thing is that U.S. is in the problem. They have problem with their own economy, and maybe this meeting, it's not. If we see what United States wants, maybe it's not focused on the Ukraine, but maybe it's focused on the economic cooperation, because the United States understand that they need to cooperate with Russia as well as other BRICS countries, China and India. But on the other hand, I also support this position of colleague KONRAD RŁKAS, that the United States will try to restore their power, and they will just not give up such easy. They will try to restore. And that is, recently I published the article how the collective West is negotiating with Russia, at the same time preparing the offensive in the Ukraine, and probably maybe new wars. So that is what we are seeing in Ukraine. Right now, we will have this summit in a few days, and right now the Ukrainian army is concentrating their power. There are around 50,000 of soldiers in Chernigov, near Bryansk. And they won't try to invade the Bryansk region in Russia. At the same time, negotiating about the peace, so-called peace. So that is, I think, that is proof that West don't want to speak about the peace, and they don't want to give up. They are just playing their own games. The strategic documents like Wolfowitz doctrine, it's still their main foreign policy document, and they want to destroy all rivals, and the biggest problem for them is BRICS.
How these aspects which you highlighted DRAGANA aspect of propaganda, and which I will add proxy tendencies to it, is actually making the paradigm for international alliances or relations a complex one, which we now will appreciate if you, PASEKA PHARUMELE, haven't listened again to this second round of the conversation, bringing us about some of the indicators of international relations and alliances, and how proxy tendencies and propaganda brings the concept even more complex, and how can we also navigate this complex dynamics given the realities of international relations, which is fame and control, and you can name the rest.
Thank you, Clarice. What I appreciate is that as the panel, we are aware of the West's games. The West plays a lot of games, and it is essential for us to be aware when they are playing games, specifically with what we are currently seeing in Ukraine and in Russia, where they're saying we need a peace deal, we need things to settle down, we need things to become a lot better than what we are currently seeing. Lives need to be saved, and etc. However, as one of the panelists emphasized, the fact that Europe is still sending its people into Ukraine so that they can fight for Ukraine, it shows you that the idea is not necessarily to have peace between Ukraine and Russia. The aim is to make sure that what resulted in the war, the ideas that resulted in the war, become fulfilled. That is very key to understand, because if we think about it, why this war started in the first place, it was so basic. It wasn't something that was complex. We started initially with NATO doing a regime change in the UK, and Russia in itself, it needs to self-preserve. And the only way that it was able to do self-preservation at that point in time was that it needed to make sure that its borders are protected. And because they already had a contract with Ukraine and other members of the Soviet Union that you will not join NATO anytime soon, because we need to make sure that there is some kind of isolation between us and them. They cannot place their weaponry in your country, because now we become targets. We are easily accessible. If they want to attack us, it will be easy to do that. So it becomes very difficult for us to enable or to allow them to do that. However, the West still went and it did regime change in the UK, where someone who was Russia friendly, where someone who was East friendly was now taken out for someone who was West friendly. And that on its own is very problematic, and no country in the world would allow that. It is very problematic. You cannot allow that. So if you understand that history, then you understand why we are seeing what we are seeing now, where the West still continues to provide men to go and fight this war, even though they've not officially declared war on Russia, but they are still providing weaponry, they are providing money, they are providing funds, they are providing human resources, even though they've not officially said that we are a part of this war. But we know, and I do appreciate the fact that President Putin has been smart enough to see these games that they attempt to play, and that is why we find ourselves in a position where Donald Trump thinks that he's been able to have some kind of peace deal in place. But because Putin does understand what is happening in the background, he has done excellently well in him being able to say, no, instead of me just taking what is given to me on the slide paper, I'm going to still protect myself, and I'm going to do all that matters for me to make sure that I still find myself in a position of power. Because as much as in an ideal world we would have seen this war over in a very long time, but because of the resources that NATO and the rest of the West have been providing to Ukraine, we are still seeing people's lives ending endlessly. And there is no need for that. There is no need for that. If I give you a practical example, if right now, what countries that the West deem as enemies, specifically China, specifically Russia, if they were to say that they're going to register a country, they have a body, and they register a country that is a neighbor, maybe Mexico to the US, Cuba, like we saw with the Cuban missile crisis, or we say maybe somewhere in Europe, and they position themselves there, they have them under their wing, and then all of a sudden these people are able to position military bases next to these countries. They would not let it go. I can promise you the United States will not allow that to happen. However, they think that it is okay because they see themselves as this extraordinary power that has narratives that have strength to control the rest of the world, because they cannot be controlled by anyone else. However, they expect to control everyone else. They expect to control how themselves during the process of this war that we are currently seeing in Ukraine. And one position that I've always held, this war that we are currently seeing in Ukraine, and one position that I've always held is that I hold a position of as little bloodshed as possible, because these are people's lives that we are seeing being lost. But there are these countries that are from the West that decide that their people's lives are not as valuable as their own, so they continue playing these games with people's lives, and that is really frustrating, Clarice. I do hope that I spoke to the point. Thank you.
It's often said that there is no opinion or discourse that is actually not valuable in terms of discourse analysis or social sciences. And I think bringing forth the holistic or enlarged and diverse analysis pertaining the real happenings along the lines of geopolitics in this global world is imperative for us to navigate the world together to make it a better place, reducing bloodshed, because when we look at all the conflicts happening, ladies and gentlemen, we'll note that at the end we are still going to see the stakeholders coming together to sign a peace, maybe a ceasefire. But then what happens to the millions of lives that have been lost? What happens to the vulnerable population that have been displaced as a result of the geopolitical or proxy wars? A case in hand, we've seen actually the devastation in the Middle East. We cannot recount elsewhere, and what had happened even during the Cold War, or even First and Second World War. Imperative for us to continue, ladies and gentlemen, to understand, decode all of these dynamics or indicators of new partnership alignment in the complex war. How can we actually work together, reducing security challenges and reducing some sort of bloodshed in today's world? Coming to you now, Conrads, if we have underlined a perspective of that, according to PASEKA PHARUMELE, has been shared by all the other esteemed guests.
What is important for the people living somewhere in northwestern Africa, what is happening in Ukraine? But still we know that it is somehow important, because
Absolutely.
It's an element of this global mosaic we are facing with. And I would say that, speaking about how especially the Western society, so these passing away dominant powers could shift themselves toward the new world, I would say that is a problem. Because, for example, I believe that Dr. Sethi could say more about it, but when we talk about the recent days push on Prime Minister Modi from Trump's side, it was only about not buying his proposal for Africa, was reading off the tariffs, and making it more free to trade between Africa and China, also with proposing more funds for African countries. When we observe Indian activity, we can observe this focusing on new technologies, development of really innovative attitude toward also global economy. And when we compare that to American and Western European attitude, it's completely different. It was still anachronic, archaic, post-colonial. they don't think in different way. They are not prepared, and they are not preparing their own societies for these new multipolar worlds my friend Mateusz was talking about. So, well, we observe that also, especially for the Western Europe, which is, well, on our eyes, doing a suicide. Because in fact, when we see how old-fashioned post-colonial thinking of the Western leaders, Americans and the Western Europeans, we can see which world is decreasing. This is a question of changing perspective. I always remind my students, for example, that I ask them, can they say what countries have been the richest, the wealthiest at the end of 18th and in the beginning of 19th century? And there are a lot of guesses. Some say Britain, some say France, some say Netherlands. No, the answer is it was China and India. Yeah. Before the British Raj, before the Opium Wars, before the all this colonial overtaking of them. India and China have been richest and the wealthiest and more wealthy than Europe, but dynamic was on the side of colonial powers. Now, situation has changed. Dynamic is on side of China, of India, of BRICS countries, and possibly in the near future for Africa. And we observe that, of course, resisting, but the Western powers are standing down.
Indeed, resistance by the Western power is what the problematic is, and of course, not wanting to accept the realities of the world in terms of ideologies, perspectives, and even practicality. And now we look at how we can navigate all these changes with you, RİSHABH, and looking at the position of non-aligned, or maybe how can a non-aligned state or balancing countries navigate or go through this landscape, maintaining sovereignty while at the same time benefiting from the diverse advantages, or the many advantages of these shifting alliances in today's
to stress when we are talking about if such geopolitical situation right now happening across globally from last more than 3 or 4 years, and after America, the leaders of these countries are first of all sitting for quite a long time, and secondly, these leaders understand that these countries are not in similar position as of these so-called developed Western nations or the US, and thirdly, they understand that our nations have very much strong prospect and strong opportunities in the sphere of development and cooperation between all the friendly countries. Because when we are talking about these Asian countries or the Africa or the Latin Americans, why I am stressing it upon? Because we need to understand that we are not dependent like the West, because we have our own a lot of natural resources. Secondly, if something we don't have something missing in our country, some natural resource, but we have such strong ties between these friendly nations that can support each other. For example, how Russia is doing right now from last more than 3 years. If you see, India and Russia are making more strong ties, especially in the terms of import. Other side, what India have got all these underdeveloped or the developing nations, and especially BRICS is already doing a lot of investment in all these countries, and always BRICS have a very open thought mind that we need to develop relations not only politically or not only business. Even BRICS is working in a special mode, which is the third main pillar of BRICS, that is a cultural dialogue, cultural diplomacy, through which all these countries are also exchanging their historical ties, cooperation between each other, because all these countries have a very strong rich history and traditions. On the other side, also I want to say, now already there are partner states of BRICS also there, and more than 25 countries are already queuing to be the part of BRICS, as they have showcased their interest that they want to be in the BRICS also. When we are talking about BRICS, just see the real statistics. If you see the population, the land area, the GDPs, economy, so the I would say, not only I would say, it's a real truth. It's practical. It's available everywhere. Russia, India, and China, the world three countries which is controlling this group, supporting with each other, because as Russia, one of the biggest country in the world in terms of the land area. And secondly, in India and Russia, India and China together, if you see the world biggest countries in terms of the population. And when we are talking about the business or economy, so where there is population, there are much more prospects of doing business and developing strong businesses also. And at the same time, also supporting the other nations also, especially in terms of technology share, in terms of development of infrastructure or medical technology development, and many more things. So I would say that we need to understand that the nations that is the West, their time period is already over. Those leaders who are leading these countries, they are sitting there only for the next maybe 1, 2, or 3 years maximum. So Donald Trump knows the reality. So he's there only remaining 3 years. Then there will be a new leader. And on the other side, if you see the leaders of these countries like Russia, India, and China, more than 10, 15 years, they are sitting and leading their country in a very, very good faith and trusty way, that the citizens of these countries are always supporting their leaders, and they believe the thought process of our leaders are in a very positive, great momentum, that they are supporting their own nation for their development with their own interest. And also not only that, they are supporting the other friendly nations who believe to stand with each other and developing the strong nations. So we should not be under pressure of the third party nations like US or the West, like what Ukraine is doing from last more than 3 years. It's clearly visible to the whole world that there is a conflict between two nations, but the group of other Western countries, they are just trying to play the business game by jumping into this war. And for them, this is not an operation. For them, this is like a pure business. So on the other side, as our leaders have always said, that we need to sit on a table to discuss, and we need to follow the rule of diplomacy. We need to respect that. Unless you will not talk, you will not solve the conflict. So we should solve our issues by discussing and respecting with each other, and try to maintain strong relationship with a friendly nation and help them to grow together with your nations also.
Indeed, constructively talking to ensure a collaborative and strong relationship that will help countries navigate the changing times while keeping their sovereignty at every level. Back to you, Dragana. Having listened to the analysis or discourse regarding a topic for discussion this day, we now want to note on the aspect of foreign policy and civil diplomacy in line with navigating the dynamics of the dynamics of the realities of international relations regarding shifting alliances, new alliances, realignment, and even the proxy engagement in this context.
Diplomacy is very important, and diplomacy can help a lot. But our main problem is that we are living in the totally two different realities. We have United States and collective West still living in their own reality, and we have the other countries who are cooperating, developing this multipolar world. But the problem is that these Western countries don't want to discuss, and the diplomacy is discussion, they don't want to discuss about reality, about multipolar world. So we are still living in the totally different worlds. And the problem is that even when the people from these two different worlds meet, they have totally different topics to discuss. Like Presidents Trump and Putin. Mr. Putin wants to talk about the cause of the war, and we don't know what Trump wants to talk about. Recently, he changed again his mind. In the past, he confirmed that the cause of the war in the Ukraine is the NATO, and that NATO expelled this through the Russian borders. And now we can hear again that he is saying that the Russia is the problem. He is all the time repeating Mr. Putin, like Mr. Putin is guilty for all the problems. It's good to respect Mr. Putin, but he is not so powerful to create all the problems in the world. So this is also the game, as we can see, and the problem is that they don't want to discuss. And I will stress that we need to be aware that no matter that this multipolar reality is existing, the Western countries are ignoring, and they are trying to restore their power, as Konrad said. For example, recently the Donald Trump agreed with von der Leyen, EU will buy a lot of weapons from the United States, and probably a lot of weapons they will send to Ukraine. No matter of this negotiation between the United States and Russia. They don't care. Even that European leaders said that they will continue to support military and politically Ukraine, no matter what Russia and the United States agreed. Yes. So this is the main problem. We need to be aware of the fact that Europe is rearming. They decided to give a lot of money, even they don't have this money. I don't know that they will try to find this money somewhere, but they want to buy a lot of weapons. And it is clear, if I analyze what is going on in Europe, it's clear that Europe is preparing for the war with Russia. And even it's not secret, because we heard the Ministry of Defense of Germany. He said that Germany is ready to kill the Russian soldiers again. And also a lot of European officials said that Europe is preparing war with Russia. And this is the biggest problem. Even the countries who were in the past like neutral, like Austria, for example, they are now pushed to enter the NATO. Even they want to involve Serbia in NATO. No matter that NATO bombed Serbia in 1999, they didn't have permission from the Security Council of United States. It was against the international law. They bombed Serbia. They created the special operation RÂČAK and the coast to bomb Serbia. They said that Serbians killed the Albanians and they need to protect Albanians. It's the same story like with Bucha, special operation. They want to accuse the Russia. So they are still playing the same games. At the same time, speaking about the peace, they are creating the military atmosphere in Europe. As I already said, we have censorship. We cannot speak about real problems. A lot of my colleagues had a lot of problems. They were in the jail because of speaking and saying what they think. It's against the freedom of speech. And this is the atmosphere in the Europe right now, and Europe is the neighbor of Russia. So it's easy for United States to push this process and militarization of Europe since they are far away. And for them, it's okay if they have a war between Europe and Russia. And unfortunately, in Europe, we don't have too much smart. I think we don't have at all smart leaders and people who are able to resolve problems. These are totally uncompetitive people. They are not able to solve the problems. So we are really in the big problem. And I will say at the end that the main differences between this unipolar world and multipolar world. In unipolar world, we have the very clear architecture of the world. We have a pyramid of architecture. We have the United States at the top, then these European countries and other countries all down. And the multipolar world is the horizontal network and structure. And also you, Clarice, mentioned two very important aspects. One is the culture. This unipolar world don't respect any culture. They respect only this Mickey Mouse and Coca-Cola and the war. This is their own main agenda, and now LGBT and feminism and green ecology and so on. And this we have multipolar idea which is based on respecting other cultures, multiculturalism. It's very important. And other thing you mentioned is what will be too many people died in Ukraine. Too many people died in Ukraine. So for the Western countries, unfortunately, it's not a problem. They don't care about the human lives. I remember the time when they bombed Serbia, and they strike the one civilian object and also the train. And too many civilians were killed. And after this, someone asked the Wesley Clark, who was the commander of NATO, why they killed the civilians in war. And he just answered they were the collateral damage. So this is clear that they don't care about the human rights. That is why we are in the danger of the continuing of war, of conflicts, because the West is totally unhumanized. Unfortunately, they don't have any anymore. They're not spiritual anymore. The Christianity is totally destroyed in Europe. So they don't care about the people. They don't have human values anymore. And I will finish with that we need to be aware of these dangers, and that we need to be prepared to resist of these very damaged processes.
And of course, we want to also look at how countries can use their distinct foreign policies to bring practical solutions to the problematics or problems we just highlighted. Dear Dragana, this just to show that the world at every level is in some sort of a complex web, and it is imperative. PASEKA PHARUMELE. When we look at this, we now think how these international dynamics are affecting the African continent, which I will say is experiencing a new form of conquest, as we know of the geopolitical competition at the continent at a level, and how the the emergence of the Alliance of the Sahel states and other vibrant decisions coming from Africa have been some sort of have met resistance from some sort of former colonial past, seeing that as a setback to their continuous infringement in the sovereignty, political, economic, and even social and otherwise, sovereignty of the continent.
Yeah, thank you, Clarice. One of Africa's biggest problems is that Africa still lacks independence, right? So officially it has been indicated that Africa has been liberated, but Africa does not control anything in the continent. We do not control the wars that happen in the continent. They are externally funded to destabilize areas. We do not control the minerals that can be found in the continent. They're externally, they are taken and then to external powers, to external countries, specifically countries like France. And now we see some countries like the Middle East, specifically the, what's this, in Dubai, where all these, they are now financing instability, whether it's in the Congo, whether it's in Sudan, I was looking for Sudan, and other parts of the continent. We saw what happened with the Sahel, and I think that is the only way and the only solution for us to finding ourselves in a position where we do not continue to be overly reliant on countries that do not want a stable and sustained continent. Because at the end of the day, the rapport and relationships that we are trying to build with the rest of the East, specifically with India, with China, with Russia, those rapports, the rapports that we are attempting to build with them, those rapports would only be beneficiary to us if we have a continent that is removed from the hands of someone else. Specifically, what I'm saying in this is that for the continent of Africa to successfully be able to move away from over-reliance, we need to be able to empower leaders in power who are not puppets. And this is very important. And I do know that at this point it has become somewhat of a cliche to call African leaders puppets, but it is the reality on the ground. African leaders, a lot of them have become puppets of the West. So their responsibility is not necessarily to take care of the power of the people of those specific countries, but their specific goal is to make sure that they please their masters, specifically through mineral resources, and then they know that they can stay in power. And because it is so easy for the West to conduct regime changes, it is so easy for them to be able to take people out of power. So now it means that because Africa lacks the ability to become united, we find ourselves with nationalistic leaders who just care about themselves, not for the people, not for the continent, not for those who have voted them in power, or those that maybe if there was a coup d'etat, they promised elevation and success, not for those people, not for them, but for themselves. That is why at the end of their terms, they become multimillionaires, multi-billionaires. They live in different parts of the world. Those people cannot be the people who liberate this continent. We've seen with Ibrahim Traore as an example where there's been a continuous attempt to try and assassinate him. And it's not just him. There's multiple other leaders in the Sahel, in Niger, and other examples. There's multiple countries where there's been these attempts to kill these people. And we know. We've seen this book before. We've seen this play out before. We've seen it in South America. We've seen it in parts of Africa. We've seen it in Burkina Faso itself, so it is essential for us to understand that we need to start relying on ourselves first before we are able to start playing with the rest of the world. Because if you listen to what our panel is saying, basically we are in agreement to an extent in that you want to be honest when you get on the table and discuss, negotiate and discourse. You want to be on the same wavelength, you want to discuss from the same table, but these countries do not see our countries as the same. They see them as children, and we see in how they respond. We saw what Trump did. Trump organized a meeting with leaders of Africa, and when people were sitting there, he couldn't even recognize where these people come from. He didn't even try to do a background check of who are these people that he'll be meeting. He was shocked that the president of Liberia speaks good English. And to show you, that's how you treat someone that you do not take serious. You do not see the worth and the value of that person. If you're going to Liberia is one of the countries that has the most Americans historically in the continent, because from a historical point of view, we know what happened with the migration of Americans, or Black Americans specifically, to Liberia. So when you start asking a president of a country how he's able to speak English this well, that means that you do not see the value of the person that you are having a discussion with. So it means that we do not present ourselves from a position of power, and that is very problematic. And I do not believe that we will find ourselves in a position where we are able to have a discussion with the rest of the world until we get our things in order. Our house needs to be in order for us to discuss with the rest of the world. And it is important to understand that, as we said, there's people who are playing games. There's countries who are playing games while everyone else is coming to come to the table from a legitimate point of view. Yeah. We are speaking specifically about what Donald Trump does, what the rest of the West does, what Macron does when they come to the table and speak to leaders. Not just in the case of Africa, but who they speak with, where they speak with. You need to look and to understand how they speak to these people for you to be able to comprehend what value they regard them at. because clearly right now what we have established is that they give respect to those that they need to give respect to, those that they think are powerful enough. You look at how Donald Trump speaks to President Putin. He speaks to that man with respect, as much as he has these games of his, but he speaks to that man with respect. When he goes to Asia, specifically to China, he speaks with respect. You know, we saw the case with President Modi and Trump, where Modi was still trying to make sure that when there's these tariffs, things wouldn't be that bad for India. But Donald Trump that's not how he thinks. You know, most of us, we try to think from a logical point of view that you can smoothen your relationship with him, you can please but once he's made up his mind with those who are around him, there is nothing much that you can do. It doesn't matter how much you think your friendship with him is how brilliant you think the friendship with him is. Because at the end of the day, what matters for him, the priority is him and the United States of America and his wealthy friends who are who are responsible for the military-industrial complex, who are benefiting for all the wars that we continue to see, because they are the beneficiaries of selling these weapons, making sure that areas are destabilized so that they could be able to make a lot of money from these the instabilities. And so it's essential for us to start from home, to strengthen ourselves from here, for us to be able to negotiate with the rest of the world. Without that, we will still be regarded as children, even though we are presidents of our own countries. Thank you, Clarice.
And to do that, Africa needs to reshape its policies, governance, and also see how its politics will give it, a better position to navigating the space in the international level. And in the same perspective, we are looking at the resistance from the Western world. We are looking at how, acclaimed smaller powers tend then to suffer from these partnerships or alliances, which are actually masterminded by, acclaimed superpowers, or even, I don't know if we can give a term as war philosophies, philanthropies, I beg your pardon, or even para-philanthropies. And it brings us again to the position of countries like Poland, Hungary, and other countries in the NATO or probably the European Union that at this moment they feel entrapped in all of the geopolitical contestations and the discrepancies which have been created as a result of NATO's position in the war in the Donbass. We want to look at how these new dispensations under the banner of the EU NATO is affecting NATO's internal, probably Poland, I beg your pardon, Konrad, Poland's internal policies and how it relates with other countries regarding Russia.
Yes, I believe that's a very important element when you think about Europe and European, especially Eastern European nations' attitude toward present geopolitical situation, is what Dragana mentioned about militarization of Europe. We believe that, when we are talking about some achieving peace at agreement level, in the same moment, the main efforts of the European main states like France and Germany is focused on increasing armament, in increasing buying new weapons, in increasing military industry, and in creating a European army which could somehow replace wider NATO agreement. So we observe that in this situation when all nations in Europe claim, in fact, for focusing on internal efforts, on trying to solve internal problems, to facing the living cost crisis, energy cost crisis, solving somehow thing which is called migration problem, migration crisis in Europe. So in general, there are only internal problems which are interesting for the European voters. In the same time, European governments are focused only in this high militarization and military-industrial complex benefits. And that's the main problem. For the Eastern European nations, which are the border ones, and could be the next victims of any kind of clash between the West and the East, it's of course extremely dangerous situation. And I would say that I can see differences between, let's say, Hungarian and Polish attitude toward that. Because when we observe politics of Prime Minister Viktor Orban, wherever we agree with his economical and internal politics or not, we can observe that he tried to provide his country politics in some kind of rational, realistic way. And it's also beneficiary when we consider objectively some economical data. When we see, for example, Chinese investment in Europe, we can see that in general they are decreasing in the countries like Hungary, but still decreasing in the countries like France or the United Kingdom. So, China are able to shift their own economical, financial investment activity toward the countries which are more friendly, more open. They are not involved in any military or geopolitical actions against the Beijing government, and that's the way how the soft diplomacy also is made. Because in the same moment, as we all know, China don't want to dominate internal politics. They don't want to say European or the Africans what they should believe to, what kind of ideology or cultural school they should follow. Yeah, that's the completely difference from the typical Western Anglo-Saxon way of hegemony and dominance. For Poland, in fact, situation is completely different. One can expect that Polish government would be especially extremely careful entering any issues related to the clash between the West and the East. As a border country, Poland should be more interested in being some kind of the bridge between the Europe and the wider Eurasia subcontinent, but in the same time, Polish political leaders and Polish political elites, whether we think about them as the conservative ones or the liberal ones, they are strongly linked only to this Western dominance and Western hegemony. So that's why we observe that the government in Poland has changed 2 years ago, but there has been no significant change in any politics, for example, of hostility against Russia, of absolutely uncritical support for the Kiev regime, despite it linked to the historical neo-Nazi and anti-Polish sentiments. Of course, it shows the contradictions between and controversies between the governments and the nations and the people in Poland are of course increasing. This element is very visible all over the Europe, but also in this Central and Eastern European countries. Mm-hmm. And this is, I would say, the seed of crisis, of the future crisis. Because if these internal problems are not solved, if they are not somehow managed in internal manner, they could easily again erupt in some kind of wider conflict. We know that both global wars so destructive for the 20th century started in Europe and started also because of internal problems and economical problems and social problems of European nations. After that, being destructive for all parts of the world, including Africa and many parts of Asia as well. So we have to be very careful to observe how these internal problems of European nations can be transformed and shifted in some kind of next global crisis, and fingers crossed, not the next global war.
Very imperative, and I think we all have to be more aware, and of course, like was stated already, apply practical reasoning on how to look at these complex situations. I think we have reached the last segment of the program that will be looking at the recommendations and the way forwards, and how we can continue to decode some of the complexities of international relations, and see how navigating also the resistance from the collective West, not accepting the new realities of the world in terms of, diplomacy, in terms of, control of the economy and financial independence. We kick off with you this time around, Richard SETHI. And now, in our preamble, we quite asked a very good question that, the realities or the changes in the world are unavoidable at the moment, and of course there is need for us to understand what the agenda for the future is, why contextualizing the present realities, and how we can also push through towards the future.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clarice. I just want to add my last conclusion points, as if we deeply analyze the past few years, what happening globally, this worst geopolitical situation, I would use the word.
Yeah.
We should deeply need to understand that, first of all, all the friendly countries are developing strong cooperation, business cooperation, economic cooperation, and we should respect our cultural values, our rich historical history, traditions, and especially also the rule of diplomacy. And we should need to value this and respect each other, and on the other side do the cooperation. And secondly, as when we are comparing or seeing the other side of the world, like the Western countries and the US, so as I told before, they don't have their real history if we see, because as when we are talking about history, what history means for the world, if you see the history of rich African culture, or the old civilization of Africa or India or China, maybe I would say, so we have something to show, but these countries don't have anything. Secondly, also I want to stress upon that we need to use our national values. We need to popularize our national values, our national currencies, to do the our business, economic cooperation and trade development between our country, and especially like how Russia is already doing from the last 2 or 3 years. Because when we always say that there are problems, there are barriers. For one of the biggest, I would say, problem is like the sanction when it started from the year 2014 onwards, and the real phase started from the year 2022 on Russia. Like Russia is one of the biggest country in the world in terms of so many sanctions. But this problem has given a new opportunity to Russia, because this difficult phase and period of time has showcased to the world, to the Russia, that who are your true friends who are standing next together with you in this difficult period and phase of time. And from this problem, we found the solution that this is the golden period of time that we need to develop our economic and trade relations using our local currencies, and we need to start to boycott using the American dollars or the euros. For why we need this? If Russia and India are doing the trade, exporting or importing, we should respect our currencies like Russian ruble and Indian rupees, and our bank should make an agreement, cooperation, and we can easily do it. And now already this has showcased to the whole world that how Russia, India, China, and other countries like India and many African countries are doing trade in the local national currencies, Indian rupees and their own currencies. So this is, I would say, one of the biggest example. I can understand that it is not that easy, it's difficult, but once we start, we can achieve, because everything is possible.
Absolutely.
If our national banks between the countries can develop cooperation, we can develop our own alternative financial system easily. BRICS Bank is one of the biggest alternative that has been started after the summit, 2015 summit. And it is also one of the big showcase example for the world that we are not dependent on the IMF, International Monetary Fund, or the World Bank, BRICS Bank can give and support loans, investment to all the BRICS countries and also all the friendly partner countries who really need investment for the development of their countries. So we need to really, not only the words, we need to practically follow this thing. Already we are doing this with many countries already from the last 3 years. And I hope that as Russia have their own card meal system, India have their own RuPay card system, so like China have their Union Pay system. So similarly, other Latin American or the African countries, with the support of Russia, India, and China, need to develop their own local system and need to cooperate on their own financial system, so that in the future, maybe, who knows, if these Western countries or the US maybe put sanctions on your country also. Like just few days ago, one of the biggest Indian oil company, Naira Energy, got sanctioned by the European Union 18 sanctions package, which was applied on Russia, and the Indian company was under that sanctions also. And within the next 2 or 3 days, Microsoft, like the American company headquarters based in US, stopped giving their services. So immediately we thought about the same thing, that we should have our own system, so that in the future we should not have such a situation that already Russia faced a few years ago, and now Russia is already strongly developed inside and have such strength that no outer problems can make hurdles for Russia. Similarly with China, and now India is now going in the same pace, in the same direction, that we have such strong innovative youth in our country, as one of the biggest youth population in the world, and one of the best engineers and other technologies that is growing, and India is helping many countries in the world in this sphere. So we need to develop our own strong platform, that we should not have any problems in the future, especially with the West or the sanctions by the US.
Absolutely.
So I hope and I pray that we, all the friendly nations, need to strongly stand with each other, respect each other, the rights of every country to grow and develop for the better life for their citizen and for their country also. Thank you so much.
Thank you indeed. It is anticipating an agenda that will make the world a favorable place for mankind as we continue to interrelate or interconnect in various spheres. With you, Dragana, while talking earlier on, you said that we can say that the world is still divided because we have the collective West not accepting the realities, and we have, of course, the new school of thought talking a multipolar world with different dimensions, and you equally made mention of the fact that international relations is being made susceptible by the aspects like sanctions, propaganda, disinformation, and other ills that makes it so difficult to comprehend and how to navigate the complex situation. So what are the recommendations from a geostrategic viewpoint as we continue to move towards the agenda for the future that will see a world interconnected with a common interest or agenda for the people and not for particular nations controlling every level? On
the geopolitical view, I will say that in general we have two solutions. One solution is diplomacy and developing the cooperation, and second solution is military solution. And unfortunately, as we already mentioned, we have the collective West, which is still not prepared to accept the reality. They don't want to discuss, they don't want to speak about the problems, global problems on the international level, and that is why the next solution can only be the military solution, and that is something what the other countries except collective West don't want. Other countries, I think, are dedicated to cooperation, to development. China, India, African country, especially Russia as well. They don't need war. They need to cooperate and to develop their own country through cooperation with other countries. And I think the same positions have all the rest countries of BRICS. So these are two solutions. What we can do and what we can pray for and wish, as RİSHABH said, that this will be the solution for us, and we need to use all efforts to push the collective West to discuss and to cooperate on the diplomatic level. That is only possibility to solve all the problems. Maybe this is the first step, this meeting between Russian and American president. Maybe this is the first step. We will see after the meeting what are the conclusions, what was the atmosphere on this meeting, and we need to hope that the United States, like the first country of the collective West, of the commander of the collective West, is realizing that they cannot win in this battle, and this is the battle between the collective West and idea of fighting, of spreading the war, and the rest of the world, the idea of peace and developing and diplomacy. So let's hope that they understand these circumstances, they understand the reality, and that we can all avoid some Third World War, some big war, and that we can develop our relations on diplomacy, on cooperation, respecting each other. This is very important.
Yes.
And yes, this is my conclusion.
Indeed, developing every strategy, putting into consideration the needs of independent nations without using infringement as a tool to control. And we want to look at how practical these recommendations of diplomacy, military might, and others advocated already can suit the context of the African continent. A primary factor in this geopolitical competition with you, PASEKA PHARUMELE, the way forward for a healthy international relations that will respect the sovereignty of African nations. Just to quote some examples like we have seen lately, it has been said during this discussion that some of the people of the other countries or continents actually participated practically fully in the building of the supposed superpower in the Western world. We cannot also undermine the role of Africans as slaves during the building of these countries. And we can now see that Trump is negotiating with countries to receive immigrants from the African continent. We want to highlight another aspect where the Gates Foundation in Namibia actually proposed to maybe test some sort of, it has to do with the pharmaceutical sector, reducing pregnancy in the country, a move that was rejected by the president of Namibia. And I think this still has to do with some sort of diplomacy as a solution to having more robust and positive international relations. So in your own perspectives, what are those recommendations that can be more practical both within Africa and the global south and holistically in the global world?
I think we've never been in a period, well, no, I'm lying. This is the one period where sovereignty, country sovereignties have not been respected by the West. Specifically in the case of the United States, I can use it because this is a recent situation that happened between South Africa and the United States, where America was trying to bully South Africa into agreeing to its terms on how to govern. So specifically, we were speaking about addressing apartheid, results of apartheid. Specifically, we were speaking about how do we redress inequality in the country, because South Africa is one of the most unequal societies in the world, and because of that inequality, what we found is that we needed to redress it, because it doesn't make sense when the minority of the population has the least amount of resources. So what do? You want to redress that. You present different alternatives in trying to redress that problem. But because we are trying to redress things with things like land redistribution, with things like economic redistribution, we found ourselves having to go to the United States and accounting to a president of a different country. That means that South Africa's sovereignty is not respected. So it needs to start from a point of respect. That is why when the President of the United States speaks to other presidents, he needs to respect them. And if we can start from a point of respect, then we can get to a point of understanding. Because by you understanding someone, by you respecting someone, then you can understand them. But now, because of these biases that these people hold against African countries, we find ourselves in situations where you have a difficulty in trying to make each other understand why certain specific things need to be redressed, why there needs to be equality, in said countries, specifically in the case and the context of South Africa. So that's a good starting point, and I think from there, then we can be able to negotiate on an equal footing when diplomacy can be used. Because diplomacy cannot be used when a country does not see you as having any value. If a president of a country does not see you as being valuable, then you cannot have diplomacy, because they now want to instruct you on how to govern. So if we can get those things in order, I do believe that we'll find ourselves in a position where things change drastically in the coming years. But that is why I'm so appreciative of of how other countries have been able to navigate this global discriminatory system that has been set by NATO countries and their allies. Specifically using the case study of Russia, using the case study of India, using the case study of China, and etc. And another thing, another message, which would be my last message, is that it is important for us to make sure that we stabilize ourselves militarily, because one of the reasons that Northern Korea until this day still holds some kind of sovereignty where they can govern how they wish to govern is because they stabilize their military. They are a superpower in terms of the military powers that they have, specifically the nuclear weapons that they possess. But we saw what happened with Iran recently, where they were attacked because they wanted to secure themselves from Israel, which in itself is not meant to have these nuclear powers. And now we would have to leave with the question, what gives you the right to hold nuclear powers but others not to? What gives you the authority to hold these nuclear powers but others cannot strengthen their borders and strengthen themselves? These things are very key. So I think those are things that we'll need to sort out for us to be able to see a more diplomatic world where people are able to be sovereign and they're able to negotiate on a level playing ground. Thank you, Clarice, and thank you to the panel.
Indeed, negotiating on a level playing ground, and how is that feasible in the present context of international relations? Can we do this by revisiting the preamble of international relations as we conclude with you, KONRAD, RÍKAS, on what is imperative for the way forward towards having a new global structure that respects each other's sovereignty, that accommodates each other, which I think I was told that in diplomacy, accommodating is not the right word to use.
Yes, I believe that we now observe that, well, from the one side, especially from the, of course, President Trump, we can see some kind of, late parody of the realistic approach to global relations. So it's based on power, on force, on stating that they are not equal players in the global playground. That's somehow linked to the old tradition of so-called realistic international affairs theory. From the other side, we can still observe, especially in the Western Europe, that they still prefer this ideological discourse. They still want to hide their imperialistic politics behind the slogans about the human rights, about the climate questions, about the transgender questions, so in general ideology. This all globalism and neoliberal agenda in general. But well, to find our way in this world of post-realistic American geopolitics and ideological Western European approach, we have to find our own way based on sovereignty, but also based on self-respect. I'm really grateful for Dr. PHARUMELE that he mentioned that ridiculous summit between President Trump and 5 African leaders, because when we remember this moment when President Trump was catcalling this Angolian journalist. You remember for sure how he was, trying to be very funny and very masculine towards African female. In the way how it would be, just taken from some of the deep south of the United States, from the Confederate States of America.
Yeah.
So we can always think that we need to find self-respect first, self-estimation. I know that, for example, for African countries with all these internal problems, it would be hard to think about, how we could compete with, even post-colonial powers, not mention about America. But you have to think that way, that yes, in some future, rather closer than farther, you can be strong competitor against American or Western European domination. We have to appreciate and respect our own abilities, our own skills, our own resources. And then we can find and create friends, we can have new relations with the other nations and other countries thinking as we. In such a new mood of our world organization, we can find ourselves much stronger than these, post-colonial, post-imperialistic, passing by powers. But we have to remember that the hard situations create good friends. And former friends who is bullying us is no longer friends. So we are not pressed to consider American or Western European global dominancy as given for good for every time. When we find our own way based on in stronger belief in ourselves, we can be then sovereign and free and effective in achieving goals for our nation, for our people.
Indeed, very imperative, all for the good of the people of the world, ladies and gentlemen. We've actually come to the end of today's edition of our discursive and knowledge sharing program, which is Global Insight, brought to you by Globus. And you can see, of course, we are talking about narrative shift. Why? Because of the realities in today's world, the shifts or the changes in the world architecture, be it at the political level, economic level, social, and probably most especially along geopolitical lines. And I want to appreciate in a special way our esteemed panel for today for the great and diverse and also practical discourses that actually provided us all with the fertile scope to continue to apply real reasoning while supporting the concepts of globalization, international relations, and how we can benefit from these concepts instead of bringing forth tactics or personal tactics that do not suit an inclusive global agenda for the benefit of mankind. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you all. Just to note that, ladies and gentlemen, you can now follow us on our YouTube page, Narrative Shift, and follow, subscribe us as we continue to bring to you all interesting topics or issues that matter in the world of diplomacy, in the world of geopolitics, in the world of geoeconomics, and why not geostrategics at every level. Thank you so much, and